We're moving on to the San Francisco 49ers, and their draft was, well, Aaron, I can say this now. They didn't have that great of a draft, and I'm not going to lie to myself about it. The Niners didn't really have that great of a draft, and it started off with Drake Jackson, the linebacker out of USC, followed up by, oh, goodness gracious, the running back out of
Tyrion
LSU,
Davis Price.
and Danny Grit. It's just not good. It's not good. And I know we're starting this video off and everyone's watching this. The Niner fans at home are watching this and probably leaving right now because I've already started shitting on them. But like, this draft didn't make sense for the San Francisco 49ers. Am I alone on this island, or AJ, are you on board with this?
I took the rowboat with you to the island of shitty drafts. It was not a good draft. And, you know, for a team and a front office and what's his name, John Lynch, like, we've been praising them doing well for the past couple of years for the most part. You know, not every single pick has been great, but this one, I mean, you like, why do you do half the things you did? Drake Jackson was an okay pick. Like, there's a lot of potential there. A lot of people like that. For the life of me, I will not understand Tyrion Davis Price. I mean, you're talking about a team, first off, that has damn near 6 running backs. I mean, what's it, Jermichael Hasty, Elijah Mitchell came in last season and played very well for you guys. Clearly, you're out on Trey Sermon. That may be the only thing that would help you decide to pick a running back here. But even still, that doesn't make it a good running back. We're talking about a guy that took over 500 offensive snaps to get just about 1,000 yards. He averaged less than 3 yards a carry last year in college. Like, that's not going to be the production even a run-happy squad like the 49ers want to put in place. So unless you're just worried about the fact that their running backs can't stay healthy, unless they're worried about the fact that Trey Sermon is never going to be an NFL running back, that pick to me was ridiculous, made zero sense. Even if you needed him, you took him in the second round, third round. Why? Fifth, sixth? There were so many other running backs you could have taken here. So bad pick there. There's a litany of other bad picks, but we got other guys to talk about that.
I'm right there with you. I didn't understand the running back pick. This just tells me they're out on a Trey Sermon. Maybe you give Jermichael Hasty some more work, but I think they're completely out on a Trey Sermon. My biggest question mark was their first pick. We're talking about the second rounder. It was Drake Jackson. And again, I praise Drake Jackson. He's one of my top 10 edge rushers for potential. But this goes to the lack of need for the 49ers and where they needed that help. They still have D Ford, who's going to come back. They still have Ebukam. They still have Kinlaw. They still have Eric Armstead. Nick Bosa's on the other side. Hassan Ridgway's on the interior. Like, their defensive line has been one of their strengths for the past couple of seasons. I think they had other needs. We talked about the secondary, and maybe they do believe in Emmanuel Mosley and Jimmy Ward and those guys back there. They signed Charvarius Ward, which was a nice signing. Offensive line, they could have went. They lost Laken Tomlinson to the New York Jets. Like, there were so many other places of need. Drake Jackson is a guy who is going to come in and make a difference, but I don't know that it's going to be a huge difference for a team that, quote, is so close to a Super Bowl. They were in the NFC Championship game. A couple of years before that, they were in the Super Bowl. I just thought there were some other situations, some other players that they could have gone. And then in the third round, their third pick, they take a Danny Gray. Nice player, I guess. But so we talked about the weapons that were there and available at that pick. It just didn't make a whole lot of sense. And I'm not sure which running backs were still left when Tyrion Davis Price, but wasn't he like the third running back taken, if I'm not mistaken?
Yeah,
I believe it was Kenneth Walker, or I believe it was Breece Hall, Kenneth Walker, and then Tyrion Davis Price. And that,
because he went before Damian Pierce.
Damian Pierce, Isaiah Spiller, Pierre Strong, all these guys.
Even
and I'm sorry, the production was so limited for just one season. Like
Clyde Edwards-Helaire.
But Clyde Edwards-Helaire had a monster season.
Yeah.
It was Tyrion Davis had barely 1,000 yards and 6 touchdowns, a relatively pedestrian running back season when you talk about college football. Like,
Balky drafted this team.
It's it's just not good. It's not good for a team that's probably going to regress some. You're bringing in a younger quarterback now that's most likely going to start. There is to be some regression expected from them. Worst draft by far from the Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch era, and it's sad, but it's true.
Dylan, did you have any positive takeaways on this draft? Because it seemed like based off of your grades for them, you seem to be the highest one out of all of us on certain picks. Did you see any positives out of this draft here from the San Francisco 49ers?
I like Sam Womack. I think he's really good. I think that's the only one on this list that you could really look at and really be like, hey, they didn't mess up. But Womack, I mean, we know the need at cornerback. Like he's just a depth corner that can go in there and make plays, as the producer is just laughing his ass off behind in the green room as the graphic plays. But anyway, Womack is just, I mean, I think he's the one guy you look and say, wow, they needed that position and they drafted it. The other places, it's like, the hell are they doing? I mean, it made no other sense, but that was the only one that made sense. So therefore it got my B.
I think that was that pick was the Tariq Castro Fields pick. Like that was the need. And then they addressed later on in a steal of Tariq Castro Fields. Cause that was what, Aaron, that was your boy from our pre-draft process, right?
Love him. They got better value on him than they did a Samuel Womack. Womack, again, my grade, I didn't even have Womack getting drafted. And there's many scouting reports out there that had Womack not even getting drafted. Tariq Castro Fields brings a little bit different. Like, this is a playmaker who loves contact, who likes that physical style. Reminds me a lot of Richard Sherman. And I'm not saying he's Richard Sherman, but remember, Richard Sherman was I believe a fifth round pick, who was a big, tall, physical corner, liked to play in that zone cover 3 scheme, but wasn't afraid to come up and hit. I see a lot of that in Tariq Castro Fields. I'm not saying he's going to be Sherman, but he has some of those physical traits. I thought that was better value there than Womack. But to Dylan's point, I'm not going to knock necessarily the Womack pick too hard, because I do believe that's the position of need. They lost the NFC Championship game because a guy couldn't catch an interception, because they couldn't stop the Rams when they needed to, right? So these are, for the longest time, the issue on the 49ers has been the secondary. Yep. I know Niners fans will get on me. Oh, we love Jimmy Ward. We love Ambry Thomas. You've always loved all these guys you bring in. And yet the one Achilles heel, they've always ran the ball really well. Deebo Samuel's electric. Quarterback's been good enough. What has cost them games? The Super Bowl, it's Tyreek Hill on 3rd and 19, 4th and 19, whatever it is. The NFC Championship game, it's Matt Stafford throwing the ball deep and you can't make a play. That's what's always cost them. And it's going to continue to do that until they invest in that position in the appropriate times. Charvarius Ward, great pickup, but they could have did more in this draft with some really good talent in those early rounds, and they didn't.
I still beg a question here. I mean, it's sure that this could be apples and oranges, but it's the play you lose on every year. Like it's that one area you want to look at, the cornerback position. If they add this, so that's what they need. But really, it could take ways from others. I mean, you look at 2019. You think the Chicago Bears are still one kicker away from winning a lot of football games? Hell to the no. That team was not winning a lot of games, even if they had their kicker, which they thought they was the only thing we needed was a kicker. We had a 12-win season. We have a kicker. We're moving on. I still think that's bullshit. You look at the 49ers, and sure, they got beat because they couldn't drop an interception. You add that, there could be more things that they needed. So, yes.
Well, yeah, the quarterback position. I mean, we talked about that. That's the biggest glaring we're going to talk about, is that inability to go and win games at the quarterback position. But when you build the team the way the Niners did, offensive line, great. Weapons on the outside, Kittle, Debo, Brandon Ayuk, good running game. Defensive line is one of the best in football. Linebacking play with Fred Warner, one of the best in football. There's only one glaring hole. It's the quarterback. That's the obviously can't win games. And it's the secondary inability to stop people when it matters most. So I'm looking at those two positions and I'm saying I'm investing my draft capital on fixing that. And they already did that with Trey Lance last year. That's whether he works out or not, that's who they invested in. Where else are you investing? Go invest in your secondary. I don't care if you have to go out and pay a Marcus May. Go pay what Williams from the Saints. Go buy your way to a championship in the secondary if you have to, or draft it. And they didn't either.
Yeah, and especially we see how every team in the NFC West and even the NFL, everyone's loading up on wide receivers, man. You have to have a good secondary now. That is going to be the chain reaction from all of us. I mean, you stay in the NFC West, you got Cooper Kupp, Allen Robinson, Van Jefferson. Those are 3 good wide receivers you're going to have to cover. You got Tyler Lockett. You got DK Metcalf in Seattle. You got Hollywood Brown now and DeAndre Hopkins. I mean, you got to cover in the NFL now. There are teams that are going to light you up, and the quarterback play too. I mean, it's It's coming for you. But did they have the worst draft out of the NFC West? Let's see how the rest of this NFC West shook out in terms of overall GPA. And it looks like this: the Rams at 2.59, followed up by the San Francisco 49ers at 1.96. Yeah, that's how it ended up shaking out, gentlemen. That's just the way it is.
Worse than the Commanders.
But we were just yeah, that was worse
No,
than the Commanders.
no, it was it. I thought
1.98.
Oh, well, see, close.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So that's what happens when you draft a running back that you don't need with your second pick. We move on. I digress. But we were just talking about the Seattle Seahawks. They end up with the highest grade, and like you said, Aaron, they had the most. They had the most complete draft. They ended up making the right picks, even in the later rounds. You got a Bo Melton, who AJ you were just very high on, and then you got the Cardinals at a 2.6. I mean, those are good drafts for both those teams, in the Cardinals and the Rams. But at the end of the day, it's the Seattle Seahawks reigning supreme.
Yeah, for sure. And I don't know that we've had a grade as high as the Seahawks so far. Maybe we had a 3.6 in one of them. Maybe the Jets, or I don't know. But I was highly impressed with Seattle. And I'm not saying they're going to come and win the division now because they had what we call a good draft. But this is the step. Their next step is finding their quarterback, right? So they started to put some pieces in place. The DK Metcalf contract is going to be next. They'll start putting pieces in place and then building that foundation. So when they do go out and either draft a quarterback next year, a Bryce Young or, a CJ Stroud, if they can bring one of those guys in, then you're already set up for success with the foundation, and you don't have to worry about a young quarterback coming into some shit box of a roster. So like the Atlanta Falcons or one of those.
Linebackers. Hey, they got a lot of linebackers.
We'll get to the NFC South because I got a lot to say.
Good.
But that's what happens when you have your owner. You got good ownership. You got good management. Got a good coaching staff. That's what happens. So I think that's the way the Seattle Seahawks are rolling. It's a good start to their rebuild.